Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to show you how to link one CloudFormation stack with another using a Sceptre. So in the previous video, I showed you how to create a VPC stack, which is using this config. Now I have renamed the VPC name back to my VPC. So we're going to deploy that. But first, let's check if there is a stack deployed in our environment. So there's no stack. Let me refresh that. Yeah, there's no stack. VPC. Is there any VPC? Okay, nothing. Okay, let's go back to the Visual Studio Code. Okay, we're going to deploy this EC2 VPC YAML by issuing the command sceptre launch -y EC2 VPC.yaml. Okay, now let's refresh the stack. Yeah, it's created. The VPC is created. The stack is there. Still create in progress. Yeah, create complete. Okay, now we want to simulate about creating another resource that depends on the other stack. So in this case, we are going to create a route table, EC2 route table, which depends on the VPC. I have prepared a template here that requires, it's similar like the template for the VPC. It requires the name of the route table. On the VPC, it requires the name for the VPC, but on the route table, it requires a name for the route table by supplying the value in the parameter. But then this also requires the dependency to be supplied to a parameter, which is the VPC ID, which will be supplied to the VPC ID in this property. So that confirms with the standard in route table as defined in here. So you can see here VPC ID is required and tags are optional, but you have a tag with the key name in order to see proper name in the route table list. So in here, that name tag will be shown in this section. Yeah. Okay. Now we're going to going back to Visual Studio Code. This is the CloudFormation template to create the route table, and to use this template, I have prepared a config which points to that route table, supplying the route table as my route table, but then the VPC ID needs to be retrieved from the existing tag. Now, a lot of times I've seen people will just grab the output of the, sorry, not the output, but the actual VPC ID from the list of VPC like this. Yeah, grabbing that VPC ID and go back to Visual Studio Code and paste it in here. Then deploy the EC2 route table config, the EC2 route table stack. So we're going to do that. Sceptre launch -y EC2 route table 1 YAML. Okay, now let's switch back to the AWS console. Yeah, you can see that the route table is being created. The stack for route table is being created. It is now created. Refresh this. Yeah, it's create complete. Okay, now this will work. This works fine, but I don't recommend using the config like this. Why? Because in such case where you need to redeploy the stack, then you will need to do that extra step where you need to retrieve the value from the VPC, grabbing that VPC, and then update your config, paste it into here with the new VPC ID, and then redeploy everything. Let's do that. So I'm going to delete the both stacks of the route table and EC2 VPC. But since Sceptre is smart enough that they depend on each other, I can just try to delete the dependency and the dependent stack will automatically be deleted by Sceptre. So let's do that in Visual Studio Code. I'm going to delete, I'm issuing the command Sceptre delete -y, and then I'll pick the dependency stack to delete. Well, actually, since it's not linked to the stack using stack output, it tries to delete the EC2VPC stack immediately, which should fail. Now, in order to tell Sceptre that they depend on each other, I need to update this EC2 route table config, adding the term dependencies, and then add the EC2VPC.yaml. Now let's cancel this and then retry. Now, as you can see, the difference, it tries to delete the EC2 route table 1 stack before it tries to delete the EC2 VPC. Okay, let's go back to the console. Yeah, the route table has been deleted. Our route table stack has been deleted. Now it's still waiting to be deleted. Yeah, it is now deleted. So, since we already have the config for the previous deployment of VP's the route table, let's try to deploy the route table immediately. This time it should automatically deploy the VPC, but it should fail deploying the route table because the VPC ID should be different. Yep, now let's issue Sceptre launch -y EC2 route table 1.yaml. Yeah, EC2 VPC is being deployed, create in progress. VPC is created. Yeah, create complete. Now it's trying to deploy the route table stack, but this time it fails because it's the wrong VPC ID. The VPC ID doesn't exist, which means we need to go back to the console, grab the current VPC, grab the new VPC ID, and update our code. So if I update this, yeah, so if I update the VPC ID, and then we will try the deployment of the route table. This time it should work. So see, as the previous state of the stack was rollback complete, Sceptre, when you issue the launch command, Sceptre is smart enough to delete the previous stack, and then it will create the new stack. So let's go back to the console and refresh this. The previous stack was deleted, and then a new stack has been created with proper VPC ID. So if we check the VPC, that's the VPC ID, and let's check the route table. Refresh this. This route table has that VPC ID. Yeah. So what is a better way of doing it? Now, as recommended by our AWS CloudFormation, whenever you create a template, you should create the output section of the resource that you deploy. So in this case, we deploy this VPC, and we should also create the output sections of that VPC. So let's go to the documentation for VPC. It's VPC, is it this VPC? Yeah, that's VPC. So we go to the return value section, and then we want to produce the VPC ID, which can be produced by either providing the ref or calling this function with that attribute. So let's do that. Now we go back to Visual Studio Code. We create output sections. Actually, I have prepared the section before. So yeah, this is the output, and then that's the VPC, the label for the output, because we can have multiple outputs. So the output for the VPC ID will be exactly the same name as the resource name, and then the value will be using the ref function, ref instruction function, which should produce the output. So before we deploy that, let's double check the current output in the stack for that VPC output. Yeah, it's currently empty. Okay, now let's redeploy the stack. This time I'm going to redeploy just the VPC and go back to the console, refresh this, update complete. So we should now have the output. Yeah, that's the output. So the output is my VPC, the key is my VPC, and the value is the actual VPC ID. Now that the dependency stack has proper output, we can update our config for this is route table 1 by using the key, this one. Yeah, and then we go back to the config, update that route table. This time we change this to use the resolver. So resolver for this is stack output, and then we point to the YAML file that produces the VPC and then put the key after 2 colons. This time we don't need to use these dependencies and delete that because that dependency is automatically created by Sceptre. Now if we update the route table, it should automatically pick up that VPC ID. Yeah, since there's no change, nothing is updated. So this time let's retry deleting everything and then redeploy route table. So let's delete VPC. It should delete automatically both the route table and VPC. Yeah, both stacks are deleted. Let's double check in the console. Refresh this. Nothing. Let's double check the route table. Nothing. Let's double check the VPC. Nothing. Okay, let's go back to Visual Studio Code. This time, let's redeploy the route table immediately. Now, as you can see, we now use stack output resolver. We don't need to know what the VPC ID is, but let Sceptre pick up the output automatically from the stack output. So it's deploying the VPC first, VPC stack, create in progress. Yeah, that VPC is created. Now it should deploy the route table, create in progress. Yeah, create complete. Let's double check the console. Console, as you can see, the VPC is created, the route table is created, parameters, yeah, it's using the same VPC ID as the one in the output of the VPC. That's the one. So that's how you should properly connect the VPCs, the stacks by using resolve stack output resolver in your config. That's the recommended way. And there are other ways of connecting stacks together if they depend on each other. Another one is by using stack output external. For example, if the stack was created outside of the Sceptre project. So for example, it was deployed through CDK or it was deployed through completely different project, but it does produce the output, or using the fn import value intrinsic function if you want to use that path, or if the dependency was created without using CloudFormation stack, or the CloudFormation that created the dependency does not produce the output, you can create your own resolver. I'll show you that in another video. Thank you for watching.